School counselors are uniquely educated and credentialed and trained to really help with the full range of student needs. And that includes, it really falls kind of into three buckets. That includes their academic success, which we all probably know about, as well as their college and career readiness. The one area that we've heard a lot of demand coming in, which has actually increased in the last year, is really working on a student's social, emotional, and behavioral needs. And that's something that oftentimes we might discount, but is really a high demand, unique qualification that school counselors can fill. When we talked to the Department of Education in Indiana, right here in Indiana for 2016, we actually had one counselor, and these are licensed counselors, per every 619 students. So as you can imagine, one counselor, 619 students, that is a tremendous caseload. And then you compare that to what the national recommendation is, which the American School Counselors Association recommends that ratio be 250 to 1. So obviously Indiana is nowhere near what is the recommended ratio of students to counselors. So schools are being asked to do more with less. And what that does is it trickles down directly to school counselors. So many school counselors these days are doing things that have nothing to do with their education or their credentials. They're doing things such as even hall monitoring, but a lot of things like data entry as well as test monitoring. And so what that does is it stretches their time even thinner. In addition, it also makes it harder for schools to retain those great counselors who want to come in and work with those kids on those complex issues, but instead being asked to spend time doing all of those other tasks that are necessary but that don't match up to their credentials. So it's kind of a dual problem for schools, and unfortunately Indiana just really needs more school counselors that can fulfill their professional and ethical requirements as well as their personal goals. It's fairly easy to see how students can fall through the cracks. So what we need to look for is that both the academic and the social emotional needs of these kids are interconnected every step of the way, from elementary school forward. Those two things have to go together. They feed together, they live together. That's how we'll know that we are addressing the needs of the whole child. And then both the academic and social emotional well-being of a child leads directly into the college career success. And so all of those components are woven together, and in fact then the school counselor kind of becomes the glue. They sit in the seat of looking at the well-being of the whole child and being able to interact with the well-being of the whole child. So they come along in all three of those factors to hopefully make it more likely that all of our kids will not only succeed but also thrive in our schools. There are several groups throughout the state, including the Indiana Youth Institute, which provides ongoing professional trainings. And while that one-on-one, those conferences where you can really interact with your peers and get some of those conversations and dialogues going are always preferred, we do know that those cost time and money, and those are resources that sometimes aren't always available. So many of our groups have adapted. So now we have a lot of webinars and online training. So there is a lot of that out there. In addition, right now, IYI is thrilled to be part of the Eli Lilly Endowment's counseling initiative. And what this is doing is it's going to invest up to $22 million in increasing the access to school counselors and comprehensive school counseling throughout our schools. It's broken down into a couple of phases. The first one, the deadline's coming up quickly. It's December 15th. And this is really an idea for schools to kind of talk about what their school counseling programs need and really kind of dream big and innovate and identify what those students need, what their counselors need, what their district needs, and what their community needs. The second phase is the implementation phase, and that deadline is coming up also. It's in May. So it sounds like it's far away, but it's really not, because that's where you really get into the nuts and bolts of what your district is going to do to enhance its school counseling program and really build those outcomes for students. One superintendent actually quoted it as a godsend. Many of them know these issues are out there. They know their kids are struggling with these complex, particularly the social emotional issues. They know that there's a workforce gap. They know that there's going to be a demand for jobs in the very near future that continues to increase, and that some of our graduates aren't prepared to meet those needs right now. So they think it's a godsend. I think there's still some questions about what do we do? And I think that's where some of the technical assistance providers are going to come in to help them take all that excitement and those dreams and those hopes and those aspirations and actually put them down into workable plans that have effective implementation plans as well as evaluation plans. And then the last component, which we've heard very loud and clear from our school leaders, is those sustainability plans are going to be key. What we need to do is take this wonderful opportunity for our state to transform school counseling and make it into something that has impact for years and years to come. The reality is many of the schools have told us that they just need some of that seed money. They just need the opportunity to test their plans and their dreams. And then once they get some of those outcomes, once they are able to evaluate, once they're able to demonstrate to other funders, to their communities, to the legislature, that those plans and that those programs actually work, then they are able to use those to bring in new dollars to hopefully keep these going for years and years to come. So there is a short-term vision, and there's also the long-term sustainability. With this grant, we're hoping to achieve success in both realms. Well, one of the great things about this particular initiative is the fact that they understand that schools are going to need support throughout the process, not just the planning phase, but actually through the next 4-year implementation phase. And that's where they have asked IYI to provide technical assistance to school corporations. One of the unique approaches we're taking is that we are really going to talk to each school about what are your needs. We are not here to prescribe any particular approach or next step or how those plans should go. In fact, it's quite the reverse. Our goal is to really talk to you about what do your students need, how would you like to see that progress, and what supports do you need to make that happen, and then to create those implementation, evaluation, and sustainability plans that will help make that a reality in your area. Schools often don't have these opportunities, this kind of really wide open time to just encourage innovation and creativity and ways to think outside the box. For example, we were talking to one superintendent and we said that these funds could actually be used to hire somebody to do the data entry that your school counselors might currently be doing. And they said, oh my gosh, when we read the RFP, we never thought of that. That would be wonderful. We would be more than happy to do that. So it's also kind of providing some of those ideas and some of those triggers that will hopefully help schools think about ways that they can really, really advance what their school counselors are able to do for their kids. One of the other things that we've heard from the national and state school counselor associations is the fact to go younger, and that our elementary schools could benefit from some school counseling. Again, that's something that schools haven't always been able to dream about because the funding wasn't there. This grant makes that a possibility.